history of hotels in Bellevue and Midland. Before I get into the hotels, I just want to acknowledge Bernard Gordon, or Jack. Rob's here, his son. So in 2002, Jack did all research into the history of the hotels in Guildford, Midland and Bellevue. And obviously that research, a lot of the research that I did came from that, so I just want to acknowledge and thank him for that as well. Now, in terms of the hotels, I'm going to go from the oldest in Midland Bellevue to the youngest. I hope that the current perception is that the hotels, we just lost hotels because they burned down. Now, I hope after this talk that that changes, because we've actually had more hotels demolished than burnt down, as in they didn't get burnt down, they were just demolished after they were finished their use. So the first hotel, that's the Midland Junction Hotel. Now the Midland Junction Hotel was located on Commercial Road, which is now Gradyson Highway in Midland. It was built in 1894 by George Hisco, and it holds the title as the first ever brick building constructed in the township of Helena, Vale. Now, Hisco was the first licensee of the Midland Junction Hotel. I think he also had Guildford Hotel at one stage as well. He continued to operate the hotel until 1896, and then he transferred to the Freemasons, which is the Grand Central today. He built that in 1896. Now, after Hisco's departure from the Midland Junction, there were a total of 13 different owners or licensees between 1896 and 1924. Now a review was conducted by the Liquor Licensing Court in December 1924, which saw 4 hotels in Midland lose their licences, and the Midland Junction Hotel was one of them, along with the Spring Park Hotel, Victoria and Bellevue Hotels. Now, after it lost its licence in 1924, it was converted into a boarding house and a billiard hall, and it was owned by Mrs. Penny Waith, and she basically gave up the ownership of the property to the Midland Junction Police Boys, which is the PCYC today, in 1941. Now, in January 1941, the Swan Express reported that Sergeant Robinson of the Midland Junction Police advised the community that the building had been secured to establish the Midland Junction Police Boys. So after the hotel itself closed, it became a boarding house for a short while, and then it became the home of our first Police Boys, or first Police Citizens Youth Club. Now, the building remained the home of the Police Boys until 1962, when BP purchased the property, with proceeds going to the construction of the new building on Byers Road. So the 1962 building on Byers Road is still there today. Now today, the site of the Midland Junction Hotel is Repco. Now there's a lot of confusion with this hotel, because we've obviously got the original Midland Junction, and we've got the Freemasons, which was known at one stage as the Junction, but they were 2 different hotels. Now we move to the Freemasons Hotel. Freemasons Hotel was constructed in 1896 by Ferdinand Charles Farrell, and it was for George Hisco, who owned it. So Ferdinand Charles Farrell, just a brief a little bit on him. He was mayor of Midland Junction at one stage. Ferdinand and his brother Thomas, they had the Farrell brothers timber yard, which was where on the present, which many know where Snell's was, the funeral director. So the Vale brothers were the first undertakers in Midland, and then the Snells brought the business of the Farrells. So initial construction of the Freemasons Hotel, 14 rooms, number of sitting rooms, billiards room, kitchen, dining, lounge and public bar area, with laundry and public toilets located in buildings separate to the main building. Now, the veranda that surrounded the main hotel building faced north and west and measured 175 feet in total length. Now, in 1910, the Empire skating rink was built on the southern side of the hotel. This was later converted into the Empire Picture Theatre, and it was used by G&R Wills as a clothing manufacturing factory during the 1940s. The building also had two shops that fronted Helena Street. I think many of you will remember that where that building was is basically the car park now in between the TAB and the hotel. I think the last use was for, I think Atkins Carl were using that as a shop. So the hotel underwent some major renovations with the main bar and billiards room by the Morgan family in the late 1940s. Now the Morgan family introduced something odd, something unusual at the hotel, where a number of 20-ounce pots hung on hooks in the main bar every fortnight. When it was the workshop's payday. Now each pot contained change of £5 or £5 note, less the cost of a pot. So this system allowed the workers to divide up their pay and pay out loans that incurred from the previous fortnight. So this continued until the Morgans left the Freemasons in 1953. Now, another character that came along next was Percy Valdemar in 1954. He was an experienced publican with his family, were involved with owned a number of hotels in the goldfields. He was heavily involved in the community, and he was a patron of and president of the Midland Junction Football Club. Now, during Percy's time, the turnover at the Freemasons, basically there was an increase from the average hotel, and they were selling more beer than any other hotel in Midland at that time during the 1950s. A drive-through bottle shop was added to the eastern side of the hotel building in the 1970s. That's the drive-through that's there now. The building, which was the Empire Theatre and skating rink, that was used as a food market at the time, and then it became a panel beater shop for Webster Holden. The hotel was then acquired by, I've missed this bit here, but it was Rackley and Wilkinson. They purchased it and to use as an entertainment venue. The barn provided extra bar takings, and they were able to put a large amount of people in there. It was always popular with bands. They got bands in there like Sherbet, and that came to Midland. So could you imagine bands like that coming to Midland now? But the new owners again, Freemasons Hotel saw further alterations made to the hotel building, and the barn was demolished to make way for the car park, which is there now. Now, Jack Garrity was a popular licensee and publican. He operated a hotel in the late 1980s before it was purchased by Len Buckridge. So Len Buckridge, I didn't know this, Len Buckridge owned the Freemasons Hotel at one stage. Now, Rackley and Wilkinson, they closed the hotel for several for renovations. They upgraded the kitchen and the dining. They reopened in 1989. It reopened as the Junction Hotel, and it developed a great reputation for great food and entertainment, and this continued through to the early 2000s. Now, the owner and the management of the Junction Hotel changed again in the early 2000s, and with that came a new direction for the hotel, with the introduction of skimpy barmaids, which did not make the hotel appeal to the wider audiences. Now, I think a lot of you would have been around that time when it was when they put the roller shutters on the front windows of the pub. So this proved unsuccessful, and it ended up closed for 2 years, and the owner ended up going into liquidation. In the mid-2000s, the hotel was reopened with a new owner and reopened as the Eastern. Now, the owners and management again undertook further renovations to the building, in particular the bar and the beer garden at the back, and then that was unsuccessful again, and it closed for about a year. The hotel was then purchased in 2018 and it was renamed the Grand Central Hotel, and today Annie and Carl, it's proving a success for them, and they're getting tribute bands playing in the bar. So that's the Freemasons, and that's today. Next hotel we'll look at is the Helena Vale Stockman Hotel. Now, located at the corner of Railway Parade and Pavlinovich Road, which is now Cale Street in Midland, the land on which the Helena Vale Hotel stood was originally purchased by Ernest Wood. It was part of the early subdivision of Helena Vale, released in 1895, and the hotel site formed lots 51 and 52 of that subdivision. Now, the original purchaser of those lots was William Byers Wood. Now, William Byers Wood, many of you would know Byers Road and William Street. That's after William Byers Wood, and he also gave land to the people of Midland. The original Midland Oval was part of his property, and he gave that to the people of Midland. So he purchased them in August 1896. Wood then leased it, and then it basically got subleased to Henry Hummerston, who is recorded as the first licensee of the Helena Vale Hotel. Now, Hummerston, I think, is to do with Mundary or Kalamunda Hotel. He established those as well. Now, the two-storey hotel opened in 1896 as Hummerston's Helena Vale Hotel, consisted of 15 rooms, bedrooms, upstairs and ground floor sitting rooms, as well as public and saloon bar. So its design was similar to that of the Waverley Hotel that was in Cannington, that was demolished for Carousel Shopping Centre on Albany Highway. Hummerston held their lease until 1904, before Walter Barrington and William Mill took it on a 20-year lease. They walked away in 1909, and Hummerston returned for another 3 years. Now, this time there was a lot of changeover. 1912 saw William Norton take on the lease, and then Norton left in 1920 and went to a John Pettit. Pettit passed away in 1925, and the remaining term of his lease was advertised by the executor, and the lease was taken up by Walter John Cale. So Walter John Cale is the father of Bruce Cale. Now, Bruce Cale returned from active service in World War II and took up the lease in 1947 after his father. Now, Bruce has the street now named after him, Cale Street. Bruce was part of the Z Force, which included Jack Sue. They were in the same forces. The introduction, Bruce Cale brought basically two things to the hotel. They had the first ever beer garden in Midland, and they also had the first television as well, so in Midland. Now, while Cale also invited fruit and veg growers to sell their produce at the back of the car park of the hotel during the paydays of the government workshops. Now, the Swan Brewery owned the hotel from 1962 to 1983, and in that time they changed the name from the Helena Vale Hotel to the Stockman Hotel, and from 1983 to 1996 the hotel has been in was in five different leases. Now, the hotel was destroyed by a suspicious fire on the 30th of March 1996, and it was demolished in June 1998. The property was purchased by Peter Bassage, who developed the multi-storey units that are now on the site. Vivash Road was renamed Cale Street, and here's the site today. Now, when they first approved that was meant to be celebrating the history of the Stockman Hotel, but with the tower design. But I don't think, my personal opinion is, it looks nothing like it, and I think it's more mocking it than anything. But anyway, people live there now, so. Now, Bellevue Hotel. Now, the Bellevue Hotel, this is one that had a short life. You wouldn't know where it is now if you really knew where it was. Everyone who's walking out the room today is going to know where it was after seeing this. This is the only recorded photo that we have of the Bellevue Hotel. There's no photos close up. So this here is the old Bellevue train station. While in the background, the two-storey building that you see, that's the Bellevue Hotel. So the Bellevue Hotel was located on Racing Parade in Bellevue. It was a two-storey hotel constructed by Thomas Wilkes in 1901. It had 10 bedrooms, 2 sitting rooms and a bar area. The property was transferred to Thomas Sayers in 1903 after Wilkins decided to push ahead with the construction of the East Midland Hotel in Bellevue. Now, the East Midland Hotel is a Darling Range hotel. The hotel operation was short-lived, and it suffered the same fate as many other hotels in Midland. In December 1924, it lost its licence. Now, after the hotel's licence was lost, Charles Mansfield ran a lodging house from the building for a number of years, and his daughter also ran a dressmaking business from the building. During World War II, in November 1942, the building was taken up by the Australian military, and it was used as a post-collection house by army units. And it was known as Wendy House in the military, and that name was used for postage. So I think all the units, basically, that they used that sent all the post there, and it was like a postage distribution centre. Unfortunately, we aren't able to find any other information to when the building was actually demolished, but today Todd Park sits on the site of Bellevue Hotel. Now, Todd Park honours Colonel Todd, who also had a relationship with this hotel, and there's actually a memorial there, dedication to Colonel Todd. Commercial hotel. Now, the commercial hotel, again, no old pictures close up, but this building here with the roof there, and if you see the photo close up, it's got Swan Brewery on the side. That's the commercial hotel. And this building here, that you can see at the end here, that is the Wilkins Coffee Palace that's still standing up the road from it. So, also located on Bellevue and Midland, the commercial hotel stands on land that was purchased by Ernest Wood, and it was part of lots 18 and 37 in that subdivision of 1895. Now, James Negus and Frederick Hollis purchased the lots in September and November 1895, respectively, before they were transferred, or James Ross purchased both in 1900. Now, the birth of the commercial hotel occurred in October 1901, when it was mortgaged to the Swan Brewery. Now, a lease was taken up by James Ross and Edward Moore in 1902 for a 5-year period. Ross and Moore operated the hotel until August 1903, when the lease was handed back to the Swan Brewery. Now, Wellborn Lamzed, he took over the lease in 1903. He remained there until 1913. During his time, he was pretty much the owner, but he employed a number of managers to operate the hotel. And then Swan Brewery returned in 1913 to obviously take over the operation again. And then it was sold in 1948 to Sophie McIntyre. Now, fortunately, again, there's not, unless we can get access to liquor licensing with all the names of the licensees. There's not, from 1948 to 1980, there's very little information available. All that we know is that there were a number of operators of the hotel in that time. That included Vale Scott, Wally Daly, Dolph Cowers, Gary Gibolini, I think he played football, Heather Hearn, Tony Paligi, George Truscott, Peter George, Jim Cole, and Alan Bolton. Now, the name of the hotel, commercial hotel, was changed to the Commercial Tavern in 1979, and it still operates today. So there's the hotel today. Now, the Council Club Hotel. Now, this photo here was taken in 1914. That's the Council Club there. That's the Midland Emporium building. And on the edge here is Carnegie Library. So that's Helena Street, looking south. Council Club Hotel was located on the corner of Newcastle Road, Great Northern Highway and Helena Street in Midland. The land on which the hotel was constructed was purchased by Charles Hunt in February 1893 from William Byers Wood, and by the 18th of July 1898, Michael Matthew and Rosemary, or let's say Rose White, were the owners. Now, Michael and Rose White, they constructed a 2-storey hotel, and then while Rose and a gentleman by the name of Thomas Wheatley were appointed the hotel keepers and took out the first mortgage on the property in 1901. Now, Alfred he became the first leaseholder of the hotel in February 1902. He was able to raise a mortgage with the Swan Brewery for £600 to cover the cost of the lease. Now, the Whites then sold it to Robert Patterson in 1903. Now, there were a number of owners and licensees in that time. Janet Beard, William Neal, A.B. Thompson, W.G. Greenwell, who else we got here? L. Bailey, James Tully, Robert Smith, Ellen Sheehan, B. Jack Jacoby, B. P. Bevan and J. Fitzgerald, Jack Turkich, George Cladwell, and then the last one was Bill Walker, the ex-footballer. So the hotel was very popular and well patronised and became a renowned meeting place for members of the Croatian community from Midland and Swan Valley. Now, during the early 1980s, renovations were undertaken of the lounge, bar, kitchen areas of the Council Club Hotel. Now, the hotel was destroyed by a suspicious fire in August 1990, with its burnt-out shell remaining until 1994 when it was demolished. Now, the ownership of the property was transferred to John Rex, Charlie Zanino, Carl and Neil Alloy in 1997, and they opened the council club that's there now, which is now the 7th Avenue Bar and Restaurant. So, there we go. Now, the Railway Hotel, Midland Inn. Now, the Railway Hotel, Midland Inn was located on the corner of Commercial Road, Great Eastern Highway, and Woodbridge Terrace, Morrison Road in Midland. Now, the property on which the hotel stood was originally purchased by William and Mary Deere in 1885. It went through a number of owners, including Robert Wilson, Edward O'Connor, and Thomas Bradley, before it was acquired by Francis Richard Honey in 1893. Now, Honey established a general store and drapery on the southwest corner of the lot. Now, for those who can remember the hotel when it was still standing, the area closest to the traffic lights where the bottle shop was, that was where the general store and the drapery were. That was a separate lot originally. Now, in 1897, Honey transferred to Thomas Nyland. Now, Thomas Nyland had already established an eating and lodging house on the property next door. And then by 1897 was successful in obtaining a liquor licence. 1898 postal registrations indicate that Nyland was already trading as Railway Hotel right up until the new Railway Hotel. The proper Railway Hotel was constructed in 1901. Now, the construction of the Railway Hotel was completed in February 1901, consisted of 14 bedrooms, 6 sitting rooms, 2 bar areas, kitchen and dining room. In 1904, Nyland received approval from the Midland Junction Council to install a water trough for horses at the front of the Railway Hotel on Commercial Road, and this trough remained in place until 1953 when the highway, what became a highway, was widened. Now, the hotel was transferred in 1911 to Wellborn Lanzed. He remained until 1937, and then William and Peter Forino, they were both from Water. They purchased the hotel, and they did renovations and alterations during the 1950s. Now, when the lease ran out for the brothers in 1960, Alfred Charleston and Frederick Sweetapple, they basically took over the lease, and even more renovations were done. The veranda on the western side of the building was removed, and a large parking area, entertainment area was added. I think this was they added the beer garden. Now, despite Charleston, the Charleston family residing and operating the hotel at the same time, it was well known that Frederick Sweetapple was in fact financing the operation of the hotel. Now, Charleston and Sweetapple, they both had interest in the harness racing industry, and it was well known that a support column within the main bar held a number of envelopes. Within those envelopes were enclosed names and amounts of money to be waged on competing horses at Gloucester Park, with many celebrations held many celebrations held at the Railway Hotel after their wins. Now, the hotel was purchased in 1968 by, I'm not going to try and pronounce that name, I'm going to say Stefan and Sophia. They operated for a number of years before they leased it to Mick Irvine and Stan Watney, who is another ex-1980s Swan District's premiership player. When the lease expired, they returned, and their sons returned as well. Their sons came to operate the hotel. Now, the drive-through bottle shop, which is the southwest corner, that was added in the 1970s, as well as renovations to the bar and the dining area. Now, in March 1997, the family sold the property to Jerry Hevron. Now, Jerry Hevron was the former car dealer in Midland, not in Midland, in Morley. Now, on the final night of trading of what was the Midland Inn, patrons paid $50 each and were given open bar for the evening as part of the celebration. So I actually had someone, I didn't know that until someone came forward on Remember Midland, and they had they all got issued with armbands. If they paid the $50, it was pretty much you could have what you wanted from the bar. And this was to be the final night of trading for the hotel after 98 years. The hotel remained closed and not trading after that, while Hevron was considering alternative plans for the site, including a car sales yard and a service station. Now, the plans were rejected by the Shire of Swan. The building was listed on the State Heritage Office's State Register in October 1999 to prevent it from being demolished. In November 1999, the hotel was demolished or was destroyed by a suspicious fire. So the battle that occurred after that between the Shire of Swan and Jerry Hevron, it went on for a number of years, and it was in regards to the facade of the hotel that was being supported by scaffolding. So approval was granted in 2004 to remove the scaffolding, and the remaining facade of the building was demolished. Now today, the site of the former Railway Hotel Midland Inn remains vacant, with numerous applications rejected by the City of Swan and MRA. And that's the site today. And there's another, now I can add another bit, that the property has now been sold. Jerry Hevron has sold the property, so no idea who's bought it or what's happening, but yeah. So Jerry moves on, and we've still got an empty site there. Now, the Spring Park Hotel. Now this hotel was probably, I don't think, there wasn't, until I unveiled it on Remember Midland and through the society, not many people knew about it. So this hotel, Spring Park Hotel, was located on the corner of Newcastle Road, Great Northern Highway and Charles Street in Midland Junction. Now, it was built between 1900 and 1901. Thomas Bartlett successfully applied to the licensing court for a license, and in April 1901, on a provision that certain modifications were carried out, obviously the pub could open. It was a two-storey hotel, consisted of 5 bedrooms, 2 sitting rooms, bars and underground cellar. And again, it was one of those hotels that in December 1924, it lost its licence. Now, after it was delicensed, it was used for a number of things, including cool drink manufacturing, as a butcher shop, as a bootmaker shop, and also finally as a general store, which was operated by Morris and Stella Houston until 1954, when they opened the store, which is today now known as Dawson's Deli across the road. So Morris and Stella Houston actually lived in the house next door, and then they operated their shop in the old hotel. And then once they built across the road where Dawson's Deli is today, they sold the building, the original hotel building. So by the late 1960s, the building had fallen into disrepair from damage it received, especially from the Meckering earthquake in 1968. Now, the building was purchased by the Muriali family and demolished in 1970 to make way for the warehouse for Midland Trading Company and Margot Coffee, which is back there today. So people wouldn't even know that there was a hotel there, considering I think it wasn't central like all the other, pretty much other hotels. Now, Victoria Hotel. Now, this one here, I think a lot of people will remember this because, well, probably not when it was a hotel, but like when it's in this photo, because it was still there to the mid-1980s. You might even remember the butcher shop next to it as well. Now, that was located at 235 York Road in Great Eastern Highway in Midland. The land on which it was constructed was purchased by Elizabeth Riley in January 1897, and the hotel was constructed between 1897 and 1901. Now, the hotel building included 12 bedrooms, 4 sitting rooms, billiard and dining rooms, as well as a bar area. February 1901, Edwin Howlett leased the hotel for 3 years, with the first year rent amount so the first year rent was £195. Oh yeah, all right, and £200 for the remaining 2 years. Now, Edmund Kelly and Robert Chapman followed as tenants of the building after Howlett. The marriage of the owner saw the manager of the Elizabeth Riley to William saw that get transferred, and William arranged for a mortgage of £2,924 over the property in January 1905. And an application was made at the Midland Junction licensing court in May that same year for a liquor licence, basically. And after the provisional licence operated for over 16 months, so it was officially licensed in June 1905. And again, its life was short-lived. December 1924, it closed and lost its licence. The interesting story with this one is the owner, the Minettes, put a compensation claim through the courts in September 1924 and actually received compensation, and the licensee received compensation for the removal of the licence, which no other hotel, the other hotels that we lost that got de-licensed, no one else put in a compensation claim. This is the only owners that did, and they were successful. So the building continued to be a lodging house despite the loss of its licence. Application was made by Elizabeth Minette July 1929 to have her licence returned, claiming her lodging guests were disadvantaged by not having alcohol with their meals. The application was rejected. Now, it's also believed that Mrs. Minette was employed at the State Library of Western Australia as the secretary to James Batty, who was the first state librarian at the time as well. So, now Elizabeth Minette passed away in August 1931, and William passed away 4 years later. It was transferred to the daughter in January 1936, and then in 1942, Commonwealth of Australia resumed the building to house 80 members of the Australian Women's Army Service, with the building requiring improvements before it could accommodate them. And then on the 14th of February 1943, the members left and they marched to the camps in Northern. So that would have been a march from Midland to Northern in 1943. So November 1943, Blanche Manette, the daughter, she leased the building out to the Underdown family and 5 other families, and the property was put on the market in January 1946 for £2,000. Now, the Underdowns at the time could not raise the capital to purchase the building, and it was sold to Frederick Thorner in September 1946, but the Underdowns remained there until July 1948 as tenants. Now, for the next decade, it kept changing hands. David Gray and Albert Bevan purchased it in 1949, in April of that year, and then it ended up being in David's Gray's name in August of the same year. And then on the 7th of February 1951, the property was registered to His Majesty King George and was used to accommodate workers from the WIGR workshops in Midland. Now, Mary Jackson purchased the property in 1960 from, obviously, the government, and it was then leased to the Gospel Lighthouse Church as a place of worship until 1968. Now, Sandy Minerals mining company, they occupied the building after the church left until 1980, and then the building was demolished in 1988. Now, today, Macquine Kawasaki is located on the site. Now, the East Midland Darling Range Hotel. Now, this photo was taken between 1952 and 1954. So, the Darling Range Hotel is located on the corner of Great Eastern Highway and Horace Street in Bellevue. Construction began in 1903. Upon completion of the hotel, its owner Thomas Wilkes applied to the Guildford Licensing Court on 3 occasions for a liquor licence. He failed on the first 2 and was successful on the 3rd occasion, was granted a provisional liquor licence in December 1904. The East Midland Hotel did not receive its full liquor licence until the 1st of July 1905, and on that day it was officially opened. So the hotel was constructed in 3 stages. The original hotel building consisted of 2 bars, 2 sitting rooms and 10 bedrooms. The southwest corner of the building was added in the 1930s, while the section that housed the tavern until 2018 was added in 1993. The first owner, Thomas Wilkes, he was an early landowner in the area and had interest in 2 other hotels at the same time, including Bellevue Hotel and the Victoria Hotel. The land on which the East Midland Hotel was built on a subdivision called the Caulfield Estate, which Wilkins began selling in February 1903. He was quick to see the advantages of having the hotel across the road from the Helena racecourse and acted swiftly to establish the hotel. Now, the hotel was also at a business advantage when the nearby Blackboard Hill military camp was in operation between 1914 and 1918, with soldiers and their families patronising the hotel at the time. In 1914, Thomas Wilkes sold the East Midland Hotel to Wellborn Lansett. He seems to have pretty much, there's 3 or 4 hotels he's had a stake in. And then it was renamed the Darling Range Hotel in 1918. Now, ownership changes in the 90s saw the actual hotel move to a separate tavern building on the eastern side of the original hotel, and that was renamed the Rangers Inn, while the original building was leased to a number of restaurants, including the Heritage Charcoal Grill restaurant, and many of you would remember the Bay Indian restaurant. The property was sold in 2016, and the new owners made a development application to demolish the original hotel building, as well as the Rangers Inn Tavern, and replace it with a Shell service station. Now, a strong community campaign opposing the plan, and that was well done by Bellevue Ratepayers Association, and authorities rejected, the City of Swan rejected the application, as well as the Department of Planning, to demolish the original hotel. The owner was forced to retain the building, with only the separate Rangers Inn building, which was built in 1993, demolished to accommodate the Shell service station. Now, January 2020 saw the original hotel reopen as the Bellevue Darling Range Hotel, and it's the same guy, the same gentleman, Craig, who is now managing it. He worked 18 months through red tape to finally get it open, and there it is today.